Toko ingoa. I'm the chair of SLIS, and so we thought that we do a lot of talking in our field about improving and strengthening our practice. And sometimes what is really useful is actually to hear from a number of different librarians who have managed to kind of work out a way of practicing that provides their particular communities with. Um, with the information and knowledge resources that they require. And I know that everybody knows, we all know what public librarians do, and we roughly know what government librarians do, but we don't know how non-government special librarians work to fill their particular needs of their clients. And so today we're bringing you Phil Clarke from the IHC Library, Jessie Behrens from the LIC Library, and Tal Rogoff from the WSP Library, and they're going to share their experiences. So I'll just introduce Phil. He's the Head of Library and Information Resourcing at IHC, which is a charity advocating for the rights, inclusion and welfare of all people with intellectual disabilities and supporting them to live lives in the community. So Phil's library is very unusual in that it is available to everybody in New Zealand who is interested in IHC resources. So take it away, Phil.
Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa, no ingarani mai tini maka o ko tipuna, ko te awa kairangi toko kāinga, kei whanganui atara au e noho ana, ko Phil Clarke toko ingoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I know I'm first up and I will stick to time. I've taken a small liberty with the day in the life format, and rather than walk you through hour by hour, I'm going to focus on 4 things that I think make the IHC library distinctive. Those are our mission, how we're funded, who uses us and how, and the project work that we've been doing. I'll start with the mission. IHC exists to advocate for the rights, inclusion and well-being of people with intellectual disabilities and to support them to live satisfying lives in the community. The strategy that's in place in order to deliver that talks about the people we support being well informed, that IHC's approach will be collaborative and importantly evidence-based. So I think that within the mission and the strategy, there's a really clear role for the library. One of the things that first struck me when I started at IHC was our outward focus. We're not just serving an internal audience, we're here for the 50,000 plus New Zealanders with an intellectual disability, their families and whānau, the teachers, teacher aides and other educators, health professionals, speech and language therapists, music therapists, staff and other organisations in the sector, and as Jennifer mentioned, the general public. In fact, anyone can in New Zealand can join and use the library. And I think that's a bit unusual. It's not unique, though, and I want to acknowledge that CCS Disability Support Library in Dunedin operates in a very similar way. So a quick shout out to Chrissy Wright and her work down there. Over half the membership of the IHC library are parents and family members of people with an intellectual disability, and they often look for information and use the library when the family is going through a period of change. So that might mean looking for information just prior to starting school. And then there might be a long gap where we don't interact with that family. And it'll be several years later where they come back for more information, possibly when a child's going through puberty. So that pattern, I think, is also very unusual. We have long periods where we don't hear from members, and then we have an intense period where we're working with them quite closely. Who pays our bills? Well, I think another key difference is how we're funded. The library sits within IHC's Community Engagement Directorate, and so our funding is entirely through charitable donations that people make to IHC. And that model also allows us to connect with donors and sponsors who support some of our project work, and I'll speak a bit more about that project work shortly. I mean, a typical day for us looks really familiar to everybody in libraries. We respond to queries, we are sourcing information to add to the collection, we've got circulation to be carrying on with and collection management. And to do that work, there is a core library team of myself, a community engagement librarian, and a part-time library assistant. Um, uh, there is also a couple of project roles that sit within the library, which I'll come back to shortly too. Um, I've already touched a little bit about what makes our service different, but I think there are a couple of things in our daily work that are quite distinctive. First of all, any new parent members who join the library receive a free book. And since 2014, we've given away around 6,000 books. It's both practical support and a way of introducing those families to the library. And second, we lend nationwide entirely free of charge. So we courier materials out around the country and we include prepaid return bags. So access isn't dependent on location or the ability to pay, which aligns directly with IHC's mission. Finally, I want to talk more about the project work, which I think sets or makes our library quite distinctive. Our latest piece of work is the responsibility of our new community engagement librarian, and we've just wrapped up a national bookmark competition. We saw entries from young people with an intellectual disability, and we received about 100 entries from around the country, or over 100 entries from around the country. And the 4 winning designs are going to be printed and included in books we send out over the next year. It's been a really simple but very effective way of raising awareness of the library, particularly with young families, and also making connections with schools around the country. We're finding different ways to support parents. Awhina Matua is a project that began during COVID and has continued to evolve. It's a parent-focused online platform and newsletter facilitated by a lead from within the library team, but aimed at working across the sector as a place for parents of young children to find trustworthy information. And from a library perspective, we recognise that much of what we've traditionally provided to members has been very text heavy, books and reports, and I feel that that can feel a lot like homework for parents. So Awhina Matua provides short, accessible articles that are full of practical and usable information, but that have clear links back to our collection. So parents can engage quickly and go deeper if they need to. It's continuing to grow with plans to increase the parent contribution, to add video and audio, and to strengthen connections with other groups of parents and across the sector. The fact that a lot of our work takes the form of projects led us to create a project library position, a project librarian position, which is 0.8 of a full time. And currently that role's been focused on oral history. We're collecting stories from 50 people connected to IHC. Those are life members, long-standing staff members, parents who have volunteered on IHC or associations over the years, and former leaders and CEOs. And the aim is to preserve those stories and develop an online exhibition from them. It's all about capturing IHC's history before it's lost. The library also created an online game, Stand Tall, which is, it came about when we were approached by a donor who wanted to know what library projects they could support. And we'd identified a gap in our collection for resources for people with an intellectual disability to learn about money and independent living. And thanks to the support of that donor, we were able to set up some workshops with families and people with an intellectual disability, and developed a concept plan, and then had another series of workshops, and that eventually, after a long period of iteration, led to Stand Tall being available as an online game. It's free. There's a web version, there's an iTunes version, and there's an Android version. And it was nominated, well, it was a finalist for New Zealand High Tech Award in 2024. Very briefly, because I want to wrap up now, we're also involved in a lot of other projects. We've commissioned research into carers' information needs. We did that during COVID, got a report in 2020 on the results of that research, and we asked the researcher to redo that last year. And the results of that research has informed a lot of what the library does and its approach to parents, and of course the Awhina Matua website newsletter. We manage other organisations' library collections, including Music Therapy New Zealand and Skylight Trust, Barnardo's New Zealand, Wellington Down Syndrome Association, Williams Syndrome Association, and most recently Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Disorder New Zealand's collections. We've begun a project to roll out improvements to our catalogue, especially around accessibility and easy read, and we've digitised IHC publications and historical records, including the IHC magazine, which goes back to the early 1950s, and we continue to gather historical information and photographs from IHC associations around the country. We've supported and promoted Easy Read, and we're using the catalogue as a place to gather online Easy Read examples from around the world and make those available to our members. In closing, I feel incredibly lucky to work here. I think the role is full of variety. It's always interesting. There's always more to do. But most importantly, it really feels that what we do genuinely makes a difference. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this lunchtime. Hopefully there'll be a chance for questions at the end, but I'm always happy to talk to colleagues around the country about what we do at any time. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil. I really enjoyed that. And I think it's really important that we still have that community focus in our practice and looking after those people who may not necessarily get a voice. And so this is very important, Mahi, and thank you again. And if anyone has any questions, they can pop them in the chat, and maybe we'll have time for a few at the end, hopefully. And now I'm going to move on to Jessie Behrens. Jessie is the information analyst at LIC, which is a private agritech and herd improvement cooperative, and this empowers livestock farmers through the delivery of superior genetics and technology. So, Jessie, please take it away.
Sorry, just trying to get myself off of mute. Hopefully my slides are showing all right. Okay, so hi again. Yeah, my name's Jessie. I work at LIC Library, which is in Hamilton, New Zealand, up in the mighty Waikato. As an introduction to the picture I've chosen for my slide, it's based on a comic series by James Turner about libraries, Rex Libris. And I really enjoyed reading this in my early days of being in libraries because it takes a lot of stereotypes and then it also kind of flips them on the head. So they do a lot of things you expect from a library and then a lot of things that you don't typically expect from a library. And I feel like that sometimes where I sit in my current role is we have some very standard practices that are familiar and probably shared amongst a lot of other libraries, but then a lot of tasks and roles that come up that might not be expected for a library role. Hopefully I can get my slides to work. So as an introduction to the company I work for, LIC stands for Livestock Improvement Corporation. It's a New Zealand co-op that specialises in dairy cattle genetics, especially for cattle grazed on grass, which is something we do really well here in New Zealand. Lots of other parts of the world don't raise animals on grass. And so our genetics don't work in all parts of the world. They work in areas that get a lot of spring flush grass growth. And so that's kind of determines who our audience is. So we serve New Zealand, but we do have some work overseas in areas of the world like Ireland, the UK, Australia, and parts of South America, and some of the States. Services we provide predominantly are based around like animal breeding. So we sell genetics through semen. When I started with the company, I could say I was a sperm dealer, not a firm dealer, but we sell semen, genetics through semen. We also provide the services to inseminate that into animals, and we also provide herd testing, which is where you take a sample from a milk collection and you can evaluate the value of the animal, both from their production and their value as an animal you want to breed from. We also provide animal health testing or disease testing, where you can take a range of different sample types and test for specific diseases, their presence, the influence that will have on the herd, and then we'll provide help and advice for how to manage that if farmers want help to manage disease on their farm. So to keep it off their farm, to make animals better again, things like that. We provide other services, but that's kind of the core areas. Our headquarters, which is where I'm based, is up just outside Hamilton City. If you can see the background behind me, I work on a bull farm. Our main office is the picture on the lower left of the screen. We've newly, in the last several years, updated some of our buildings. What you can't see is we also have a semen lab, a sexing technologies site, a number of other buildings. We have a pool we can use, which is always fun, and a conference centre. So yeah, we're in a rural area, which has a bit of an influence on the staff that come out here. Oh, sorry, a bit ahead of myself. So our company has about 800 full-time staff and 1,500 seasonals that we employ every spring to help with the peak season. And all of those employees have the option of using the library. Some of them are at the same location as the library, but others are based all around the country. So we have bases from Northland down to the bottom of South Island. People who are not based at Newstead can email me for things that they need. If they have articles they're looking for, journals they want a hold of, books that they need, something that we can provide by post, or if they come up on site, we can collect it in person. So yeah, our customer base is spread, and we have a staff based overseas, and I try and find services that can work for them too, including like e-journal collections that they can get their own login for, but it'll probably be limited in what services we can provide for them. So yeah, our customer base is spread out. We have a physical space. It's very small, so it's about 3.5 meters by 8, with just enough space to have a few shelves and some couches. It's predominantly made up of non-fiction books, so ones in the applied sciences, animal health, reproduction, fertility, mating. We do have a well-used section on management and building leadership skills, as well as IT. We have quite a big internal IT department who uses the library quite a lot. We have a small fiction collection that we have based on donations. We don't use a budget for our fiction collection. When people have books that don't want to keep anymore, or that they think might be useful for other staff who might be interested. They'll usually drop it off and we'll assess them for whether they're worth putting in our collection. And that's how we manage our fiction collection, which gets used quite a lot because we have staff who can't make it to public libraries because we are based out in the countryside. It can be hard to make it into town before they close. So that one actually, we have some avid readers who make good use of that. Our physical space is also self-serve, which is interesting and can be opportunity and a challenge. We kind of rely on people writing down which books they've used on paper and then returning them. I'll check it periodically and follow up with people after a certain point, but we have pretty loose lending rules. Like if people hold on to them for a couple of years, we're okay with that. We're not really okay with them resigning and leaving the business and taking it with them, but that happens too as part of the self-serve nature. But it does mean I don't have to be sitting in the library, which is a good thing because there is not much space in there for a desk. So that's how our physical space works. We have a digital collection that's mostly accessible through our library catalogue. It contains mostly scientific articles, but also some digitized company material. And we subscribe to Libby as the e-magazine platform that's available to everyone, including those overseas. We have an archive room as well. So a place where we keep material that we don't want going walkabouts because it's too valuable for our company history, but is useful and people come and reference every now and then. It also holds some material that we just don't have space for on the shelves, but we don't want to get rid of it. So some things that are in there, we have like photos from company photos, film reels, some prototype equipment, some handwritten pedigree records and minute books from the early days of the company, so early 1900s right through to the 1980s. A lot of things got put on database. And then we keep company catalogs so that people can go back and see which different points in time when we're doing company reviews, what was our logo, what were we selling at that point, different services, how they've changed over time. They actually get used quite a bit. My role, so I'm a sole charge librarian, so I cover anything and everything that has to do with the library, collection management right through to user engagement. And then the other half of my role is as an analyst. So I have a degree both in libraries and in information systems, so databases and some coding background, which is helpful because I now use both of them in my current role. And then I have like a side of archivist historian that I'm learning that's come up just by the nature of the work as it goes over time. We do have a lot of people in our company who have been here for like 30 to 40 years, so I don't know the most of the history, which is lucky, but often people need parts of our history, and that's when they'll come and see me. On any given day, these are a range of tasks that could come up. So I spend a fair amount of time looking through publications or media about company coverage, so I can let people know what's happening, what's being published about the company. Also hot topics. Whenever projects are happening, we try and keep on board with who's doing what so that when we can see the same kind of work happening in other parts of the world, we can let them know things that they can be aware of and look into. I'm the designated point of contact for our whole company for standards. There are a number of times, part of this is because we have an e-library subscription for certain standards, but whenever anybody in the whole company wants a standard, if they try and contact Standards New Zealand, they'll always get sent back to me. So it just comes with the role, which is neat. You get to keep an eye on different things happening around the place. You get some literature searches, which probably other people might get as well. You learn to deal with a lot of technical jargon. Sometimes they're science-based, sometimes they're from the legal team who just need to know what's happening for patents that they're working on or different work that they're doing. It involves journal circulation. We do this both hard copies for a number of different reasons, but also we forward around a lot of table of contents for different journals, especially in genetics. Again, helping people stay on top of their subject areas. I manage all the logins for Libby. So whenever someone new wants access, we have to set them up with their own account. Collection management, that all comes as part of the job. So this is my space, my 3.5 by 8 meter space, roughly. Enough space to hold a couple of user engagement activities like murder mysteries. I find these a really helpful and important part because people often see the space, think of it as just like a coffee room or a meeting room. Sometimes we're okay with that, but it's important for them to know that there's actually still staff that could help them if they need information services as well. So we run things like murder mysteries, try to keep it as low maintenance as possible because people are also trying to do their day jobs. Want to make it engaging enough so they want to try it in their own time, but they don't need me to monitor them during these activities. And so we do, things like murder mysteries or cookie hunts, or I can sometimes run activities just online. They can go use the library catalog, try figure out puzzles like this one in the bottom left corner, and then they can go find some chocolate coins. So really low maintenance ones that they can do whenever they have time and give it a go. And understand that there's actually somebody still looking after this space. Part of the role has become being able to assess records, whether they're of value to the company or not for long-term keep. An example was not long ago, I received the above box of work from someone who'd been in the industry for a long time but had now passed away. Their family didn't want to check it out before checking whether it was of value to somebody. Turned out it wasn't of use to us, but a part of the role has become send it to the librarian, they'll assess it and see whether we keep it or not. In this case, this one we sent on to ag research with their library because it wasn't actually related to the work we would want to keep in our archive. But this project below is one I'm currently working on that is company related and is a long-term project and a challenge for me. I don't come from a preservation background, but I'm starting to learn some things involved in it because we, again, have to make assessments, what to keep, what can be chucked out, what has value, what could be possibly of use to the company when they do like celebrations of 75, 100 years, different areas. So yeah, that's a big project currently working on, and it will probably go for another year or so. In any given day, I could also be involved with a lot of R&D team meetings. So my role sits under R&D. So I get involved with their deep dives on projects, different topics they're working on, do a lot of company meetings so I know what other people are working on. This is kind of important because I need to know what people are working on so I know how to help them and to promote the library by keeping an eye on topics and letting them be aware of what else is happening in their space. Doesn't mean I get to go to a lot of celebrations as well. Lots of free morning teas, which is always a perk at work. You love it. Several times a year, we also go on farm so we can stay in tune with our external customers. And that's always a great opportunity to learn about how science gets applied in real life. I really enjoy our farm visits, and it definitely adds variety to the work that we do. So change of venue, which you get to be more familiar with and appreciate all the different aspects of cattle. That's great. On any given day, I could also be doing coding up a project, some to pull or manipulate data for different work people are doing. I can do a lot of data extracts, custom reports can be for internal staff, external customers, or sometimes the police or MPI. It's a bit of variety on who needs data extracts. I've been involved with the dairy statistics report for several years, and we do some quality control for genomics and a number of other projects. So quite a variety. I really enjoy the variety and the opportunity to learn new skills in multiple areas. And so that's some of the things that I could do on any given day at work. I don't know if we do have time for questions now, or we can do them later, but that is the LIC library.
Amazing. Thank you, Jessie. There's a lot of complexity and a lot of fun, and it is quite the job for one person. If anyone has any questions for Jessie now, I suggest actually just popping them in the chat and Jessie can answer them. Otherwise, if you want, we can wait till the end. Okay, it looks like Tao has started. So thanks again, Jessie. That was amazing. I will just introduce Tao. So she is the Information Management Coordinator, Kei Whakahere Mohiohu at WSP's library, which is a private civil engineering project management firm. That's not a mouthful, Tal, that spans across 50 countries. And Tal supports the New Zealand branch out of the Wellington region. So loving to hear you, Tal.
So kia ora, everyone. Thanks for that introduction, Jennifer. So I am also a solo charge, and I've been taking notes because there are things I can relate to both. So both thanks to Phil and Jessie. There's just such a wealth of knowledge between the two of you. So WSP New Zealand Information Centre includes our library service. We were gifted our name, Te Puna Parongo. And I'll just talk a little bit about myself because I am a solo operative. I have been a librarian since 2016 and I've mostly worked in special libraries. I started out at the Israel Antiquities Authority, and then when I came back to New Zealand, apart from a year that I spent at Upper Hutt Libraries, I worked at Treasury, and now I've been at WSP coming up 5 years. I've been a registered member of LIANZA since 2021, and I was a kakaho in the second and final intake of Whiriata Tangata in 2023. I got my colleague to take a photo for a post, and I'm just including it mostly because you get to see a little bit of the shelves. And I don't know about you, but anybody's space I walk into, the first thing I do is check what's on the shelf. So just a little bit for the context about my work first. So WSP is a global organization. We've currently got 83,000 people around the world with 20,000 active projects on all continents, and that does certainly include Antarctica. We've got more than 9,000 clients that have been served in over 50 countries with over 100 sectors and services. Some of the ones you'll see the most will be power and hydraulics and environment. And we've got things that we have in New Zealand that we don't have elsewhere. We've got one of the largest research labs We've got the largest research lab, if I remember correctly, in the Southern Hemisphere, which is where my physical library currently sits. In New Zealand, we've got more than 150 years because we date back to the Ministry of Works, which was established by Julius Vogel in 1870. So that got privatized in the 90s and then eventually got bought out by WSP. So WSP is not small. But I am the only full-time librarian globally. I've got a couple of colleagues in different parts of the world who do some of what I do, but are not a librarian doing all of these things. So it's I'm according to our CEO, I am in fact a unicorn. So where you'll find us in New Zealand, so like I said, WSP bought out what was Opus International Consultants in 2017 and continues the legacy of the ministry. This is a map of all the various locations you'll find us in, including, if I remember correctly, it's 24 offices and 10 labs. So we're in 34 locations, and I'm in the Wellington region. I'm currently sitting in our physical library in the Petone office in Lower Hutt, and our headquarters are out of the Majestic Centre in Wellington. So the Information Centre is the latest iteration of what was quite a large library back in the day. Apparently, there used to be over 20 librarians back when everything was analog. And increasingly over the years, that just decreased and decreased and decreased, and it was down to 5, and then it was down to 3, and then it's down to 1, and now it's me. So most of the work is going to be very familiar to all of us in terms of customer service is really, at the end of the day, one of the big parts and one of the main parts of what we do. Lots of document delivery, whether it's into loans or purchasing, and reference work, collection management. But for me, that also includes a lot of things like the digital documents that need to be done, the subscription management. So Jesse talked about managing access to Standards New Zealand. We also have, as you can imagine, for engineers and chemists and so on, lots of professional standards. So I manage a bunch of subscriptions across various standards platforms. I manage the budget every year, etc. And increasingly with the job, there's also that element of archival records and information management. I'm increasingly moving into the space of information management and records management and becoming the guidance on that, while also being delicate because I can't provide legal advice. But we have an intellectual property policy within the company, which allows me to be very, butter couldn't melt. I'm sorry, I can't acquiesce with your request in keeping with our IP policy sort of response. But I do a lot of advocacy around that just because it's something I'm passionate about. So there's a lot of variety in the everyday as well. But I'm doing any given day, I could spend the entire day just doing some archival stuff, or I could end up spending most of it taking one-on-one calls and helping people find things, or trying to put out a fire here or put out a fire there. We do, as you see, this physical library is the only location for a physical library. So when people want to borrow a book, it's couriering it wherever it is around the country. It's a lot of chasing. So it's not we've minimized the self-service element because historically people, things had a tendency of disappearing. So we've, at the risk of gatekeeping the collection, we've locked it so only certain people can have ready access to the collection, and it just allows us to monitor that a little more managed in a way that's easier to manage. A lot of my work of a day can be reference work, lots of literature searches, documents that people want to find. We do have an internal portal that I direct everyone's requests to because it also allows me to collect that data. And I have been known to create a subscription based on multiple requests in a certain time frame that made it very evident this was something that was required. We're increasingly moving all our standards to one particular area just to make it all as user friendly as possible. So I've had to learn to do things like create and manage and edit SharePoint pages and use the LMS from that I hadn't been familiar with before, and little ways to promote the services. So a Teams channel, spamming all the other team channels when necessary. And I was reminded when Phil was talking earlier about the bookmark competition that I created bookmarks a couple of years ago, and every time I send a courier to someone, one of these is inside with a note for like, this is for you to keep, sort of thing. So it was just a great little bonus to be able to share with people. And yeah, no, that was it. No 2 days are the same. I've been doing a lot of maintenance of the sites themselves, the access, a lot of jumping up and down and reminding people that I'm here, because, as a solo librarian, you're surrounded by people who don't necessarily understand the complexities of our world, not to mention some of the horrors you hear about with things like copyright, which people more often than not just out of pure innocence and ignorance, have no idea what they're doing. So I try to be as much of a guide in that respect as possible. I would say the greatest challenge that I have found in the last few years is coming into this role as a early to mid career, depending on where you place things, librarian, is the lack of having people to bounce off in terms of ideas, and that has meant having to seek that advice elsewhere. So in terms of the nature of the actual organization, plenty of people to talk to, but when it comes to library stuff, so I've been big on trying to find mentorship in that space. But yeah, so it's and no 2 days are alike. Lots of customer service and just trying to keep people as excited and as engaged as possible. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tao. I really hear you around the soul charge and you too, Jessie, and you, Phil, because it's very hard because we are, as librarians, we're not often subject we're more subject generalists because we can work across a range of formats, but we actually end up being subject specialists, and we quite often, I don't know how we absorb that knowledge, but somehow we get it in there. Um, so we have a little bit of time. We have 15 minutes. So if people have questions, please raise your hand. Um, Otherwise, you can put them in the chat for the moment. And if Jessie and Phil and Tal are happy to put your email addresses into the chat, then we can then people can maybe reach out directly if you're comfortable with that.
Jennifer, there are a couple of questions from back at the beginning. Can you see the chat there to read those out?
Just one sec.
Let me know if you'd like me to help.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, no, I see the chat. Okay,
So from the top, I think I've answered the one about Phil's workplace name. Correct me if I've not got that right, Africa. And then we've got Annie. So if you can see Annie's.
Do you
Sure.
have?
I can read them out if that would help.
Okay. Yeah,
Sure.
okay.
Okay, so Annie's question to you, Phil. What kind of items do you have in your collection? Do they mainly cater for guardians people with intellectual, and then that's cut off?
Okay. Yeah.
I think you sort of covered that, but maybe Annie came in a little bit after you'd started.
No, that's fine. I mean, yeah, the collection covers everything from children's picture books right the way through to research journals. So it's very broad in that sense. And we aim to support the supporters of people with intellectual disability, but also people with an intellectual disability themselves. So, yeah, it covers both.
I loved how you worded some of the information that you supply, that it doesn't feel like homework. I thought that was beautiful. Yeah. There's another question. Sorry, just scrolling through. Lily said, really loved your presentation. I had a question about funding. Are library staff responsible for sourcing funding for the library's work, for example, writing grants, or is this done through the larger IHC organisation?
Yeah, we're incredibly lucky to have a fundraising team at IHC, and there is a colleague who is responsible within the fundraising team for grant applications. So no, we don't have to write those applications ourselves, but obviously we have to provide the information for those grants. But yeah, very, very lucky to have a dedicated team.
Yeah, be a stretch to add that to your day job. Then we've got a question for Jessie. Do you have any particular platform that you use for gathering and sending out your current awareness hot topics?
So no particular platform. We do it in a number of different ways. I end up reading a lot of agricultural publications myself to see what's in there and if any of it's related, or really skim reading a lot of the time. But also I have some search alerts for like through Google that I use, and there's a number of other places that I can come across things, but no one particular platform. And in terms of sending out, it's whatever, because I'm finding it from different places. It could end up in an email, or it could end up in a Teams chat. It might depend on the person I'm trying to get it to, because we do have some staff who don't really check emails, and so you have to kind of know which ones those are and how else you can get it to them. So yeah, not one particular platform, just whatever works for different staff based on what you know about them and however you can find it. So it's definitely not foolproof in terms of we capture every single thing, but there is probably no one way you could do that anyways. I have done a foray into AI and the use of using that to track company coverage, and that does a worse job than I do. So manually searching through, you find way more than what you could get from an AI chat. No, from like an AI agent and a tools. They have limitations on their ability to access archives for news media, especially agricultural publications. So yeah, no one platform, and AI is not a great help in this area either.
Fascinating. Thanks, Jessie. You're doing so well considering you're coughing, and thank you. Rose has got a question for Tal there. Could you give us some examples, of topics you deal with at work?
Yeah, sure. I saw that, Rose. Been thinking about this a little bit because also, of course, there's going to be stuff that I can't share. One of the things I particularly love about the work is, I mean, I've always loved reference work, because I love a good, treasure hunt for information, and it feels a lot like a treasure hunt. But one of the things I love is because of the sheer diversity of work that people do. So I can work on I can get anything from wanting to find, I think one of the biggest challenges I had a couple of years ago, somebody wanted me to find them an old journal article from 1945 from a discontinued transport journal in the US. And I was luckily able to reach out to a forum of, there's a circulation group of transport librarians from the US that I was part of, and I was able to reach out and get guidance and get a copy. But there's anything because our history in New Zealand goes back to Ministry of Works, anything that was built by Ministry of Works is still going to be our responsibility. So if it's end of life or repairs, or, after Cyclone Gabrielle, there was a lot of work up in Waikato. But there's going to, it's going to be things like accessing historical documents or finding literature or the literature gaps about anything from road safety to wastewater management to silt in certain areas. Like there's just such a variety. Yeah, it's a huge. It's very different from request to request. But I also got asked in the chat about my background if it's in engineering, and I always have to remind staff who haven't worked with me before that I did my degree in medieval English literature. So you're going to have to explain this to me because I don't come from an engineering background. I speak Chaucer, not engineering. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. I'm just going to, in the interest of time, just go through exactly what's in here rather than wanting to have a chat more about what you're talking about. Rachel's got a question for you, Tal. Was the only full-time librarian globally?
Yeah.
You end up getting queries. So you've
Every
answered
now
that.
and again I do, but I unfortunately always have to remind them that although we talk about ourselves as being one very big company, we're in fact a group. So it's more of a federation of companies, and I'm still beholden to national copyright law, which means that I can't provide that service because it would be a breach potentially. Also, not to mention 83,000 people. I struggle enough with 2,000 that I have here. So if I have someone locally to deal with it for them, I will send them in that direction. And if they don't, so much the better, because hopefully that creates the call for why don't we have a librarian, in their respective places. So yeah, I'm not above sowing the seeds of dissent. I'm not going to lie. In the grand scheme of things, I can't help them, even if I wanted to. I'm unable to do so. So it ends up being a deeply apologetic and as helpful as I can be without committing to anything, because I don't want to create a situation where I'm getting lots and lots of requests. It's also a reason that our services, the services for the information center, are in the SharePoint space and taken off the global access intranet, because I don't want anyone from outside of New Zealand to go, oh, we have access to this. So yeah, I try to hide it a little bit from the externals, if I'm completely honest on that one.
So complex.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I'll hand back to you. Thanks, Tal.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I thank you very much for all your questions, for the people who came along to the meeting, and thank you again, Phil, Jessie and Tal. It's been amazing to learn about what you do and, just the unique characteristics of every library and how hard you work to serve your special community, however that might look. And I think that's one thing that we need to remember, is that we're always here for our customers, and our customers are our customers, no matter how it looks to other people. And that, I think that's something that we should all congratulate ourselves on once every so often. So thank you again, and I'll hand back to Paula so that she can close us off.
Thanks, everyone. That was a fantastic session. And I think we've got a bit of an idea for doing a day in the life of unusual school librarians next. And just having had a background in both schools and special, gosh, there's a crossover. Our demographic might be slightly different, but gosh, the demands are so similar. So yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. 40 people. Remember, you can use this for your CPD journey, or professional registration, writing a learning reflection and submitting it. As one of your points. All right, I'm going to close with karakia. The words are hopefully in the chat there for everyone. I think this one's quite apt. Ono here te pō whiri marama, tomo kia te ao whatu tangata. Tātai ki runga, tātai ki raro, tātai aharau. humie, huie, tākie, and that's from confusion comes understanding, from understanding comes unity. We're interwoven, we're interconnected together as one. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you.
Kia
See you all next
ora.
time.
Thanks so much.